What's up, guys? This is Satsme, and I'm coming to you with a brand new deck profile today. And today I decided to look at Fire Kings. Now, there are some cards in this deck that are not available to us in the TCG as of right now. Those two cards being Vanisher the True Draco Emperor, and I believe we're getting him in Dark Illusion. And then we also don't have Fire King Island yet. That is I believe that's a Korean exclusive in the OCG. So unfortunately, we don't have this card, and we don't have this card yet. However, if we ever do get these cards, this deck will become very, very consistent, just because they're just really, really good for the deck. So let's get into it. I'm playing two Fire King High Avatar Garunix. If you don't know what Garunix does, he's basically the boss monster of the Fire Kings. And during the standby phase after this card was destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you get the special summon from the graveyard and then dark hole the field. Also, when he's destroyed by battle, you can special summon a Fire King monster from your deck, except another copy of himself, and it just allows you to cycle him, which is really, really cool, as well as to provide some floating in the deck as well. Obviously, this card isn't good at the moment with Cosmos being a thing, but in terms of general matchups, really this deck has a decently good matchup against Monarchs. I would say yes, they can get around Garunix with an effect like the Monarchs from 4th, but typically you're gonna have it's very easy to get two of these in a cycle with each other, where you're destroying one with one Garunix effect and then special summoning out the other one, and then the next standby phase you switch the two essentially and blow up the field every turn. So Garunix is a very, very powerful card, and sometimes it's very difficult to get around. 3 Fire King Avatar Yaksha. When Yaksha is destroyed by a card effect, you can destroy it. Well, if it's just destroyed, you can destroy one card in your hand or that you control. Allows you to get Garunix's effect off when it's in your hand, so it's not dead. Also, when Yaksha is when he's in your hand, face a Fire King monster you control is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon him, and that's the same for all of your little Fire King guys. Barong has that, Kirin has that, so it's very useful and allows you to float a little more, so that's pretty cool. Speaking of Barong is the Searcher. He has the same effect again, like being able to special summon when a monster is destroyed. However, when he's destroyed by a card effect, specifically a card effect, he's the only one that can only be destroyed by a card effect and then get it. In terms of the little guys anyway, and then get an effect off. These two, they don't really care how they're destroyed, they're just destroyed. But when he's destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can add one Fire King card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of himself. So Barong is like probably my favorite one, just because he helps thin out the deck and gets the cards that you need. And then finally 2 Kirin. Kirin's definitely the worst one that I'm main decking, but it's still rather useful just because of the build that I'm going with. If a face-up Fire King monster obviously is destroyed, you get to special summon him. And if he's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can send one fire monster from your deck to the graveyard, and that's actually really, really useful, though in this way that I'm playing. I'm also playing 2 Coach Soldier Wolfbark. I was playing 3, and I got a little cloggy. I wasn't needing 3. 2 was perfect, so I was going with 2, and it's worked out very well. Wolfbark is essentially like a main deck Norden. You can target one level 4 Beast Warrior type monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And that's just really powerful. I'm also playing Neo Flamvell Hedgehog. Hedgehog's really cool because he's a tuner at 1, so it allows me to go level 7s to level 8s, and I'll explain how I get into level 8s a little later. However, it's destroyed by battle. You can select one card in your opponent's graveyard and remove from play, and that's pretty useful. But even better for this deck, because he combos very, very well with Draco Emperor. If he's destroyed by a card effect, select one fire monster with 200 or less defense in your graveyard, except another copy of yourself, and add it to your hand. This also works with Garunix, so like if he's on the field and the next standby phase, Garunix comes back and just dark holes the field, you get a card back in your hand with Hedgehog, and it's really good for recyclability. I'm also playing 2 Spirit of the Flames. You have to banish a fire monster from your graveyard in order to special summon him, and he's a level 4, which is really important, and that's why I'm playing him, because he is a level 4. He's okay. More often than not, I'm destroying him with special summon Draco Emperor, but nonetheless, I wouldn't take him out at this point in time. And then finally, probably my favorite card in the deck, by far, other than Barong. Barong's my favorite Fire King monster. This is my favorite card in the deck. If this card is in your hand, you can destroy 2 monsters in your hand or face up on the field, including a fire monster, and if you do, special summon this card, and if you destroy 2 fire monsters this way, you can banish 1 monster your opponent controls or in the graveyard. If this card is destroyed by a card effect, you can add one non-Fireworm type monster from graveyard to your hand. That's whatever. Also, you can only use that effect, each effect of Banish for the True Draco, the True Draco Emperor once per turn. This card is beautiful for this deck. One, he's a 29k beater, like like a 2900 beater, not 29k. He's level 9, which is really actually useful for this deck, and I'll explain why when I get to the rank 9s. Also, he's Worm, so he works really well with Yazi, and that's actually really cool because it allows you to cycle between them, and that's really nice. Also, the way that you use Hedgehog with this card is that you normal summon Hedgehog and you use any other like fire monster in your hand. You activate Draco Emperor's effect. Preferably, you're gonna want to send one of the little Fire Kings because they have 200 defense. But you pop a Fire King in your hand and a Hedgehog on the field, and then you special summon him, banish a card, and then you get to add one of these guys back into your hand. And then you also still get one other effect. So Kieran sends a graveyard. You wouldn't get Barong's because he's not in the grave. I believe that's how the ruling works. If not, please correct me below. And then Yaksha, you get to destroy one card in your hand, which hopefully you would have like a Grunix or another Fire King card in your hand. That's really, really useful for comboing and whatnot. So Draco Emperor is really cool. Also, anyway, moving on to the spell cards. 3 Onslaught of the Fire Kings allows you to essentially search any of your Fire King monsters. Typically, it's going to be Grunix just because Grunix is just really good. But Onslaught is just special summon Fire Beast, Beast Warrior, Winged Beast type monster in your deck. Its effects are negated and is destroyed during end phase. It's pretty decent. It's just good, so why not? I'm also playing 3 Circle of Fire Kings. This is not typical for a Fire King deck. Typically, you'll see people play 2 of these, but I opted to play 3 because it's actually it's really useful for OTKing, because then I can like pop a card on my side of the field and then special summon from the graveyard and continue to attack. Yes, I can only activate once per turn, but nonetheless, it's helping me cycle through my stuff. Also, allows me to get cards back on the field that I need, like Grunix or level 4 if I so needed to. I can pop a Hedgehog, special summon a level 4, and then add a card back to my hand, or I can pop Hedgehogs, special summon Grunix, or Draco Emperor, add a card back to my hand. So like Fire Kings is very useful for helping the cycles that you do in this deck. I'm also playing 3 Supply Squad. You're destroying a lot in this deck, and I usually open up with at least one of these in testing. Like it makes the deck so much more consistent. And if you have like 2 on the field, you're drawing 2 cards every time you destroy a card, which is really useful. 3 Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is really good in this deck. 1, Norden is a thing. Also, I'm playing Flame Swordsman, which allows me to cycle through Circle of the Fire Kings, as well as use for like Fire King Island or whatnot. So, and I can also use them to summon Draco Emperor. So Instant Fusion is really, really critical in this deck. Also, it allows me to, if, for example, I don't have a play, I can still activate Instant Fusion, as long as I have a Supply Squad on the field anyway. And then during the end phase, when Instant Fusion's effect kicks in and pops my Flame Swordsman, I get to draw off a Supply Squad. So, worst comes to worst, and I have a Supply Squad on the field, I'm going to get a draw at the end phase. So that's really, really useful. 3 Tenki. Tenki searches out all the little guys, so that's pretty cool. As well as Wolfbark, and then 3 Fire King Island. As I said, this is an OCG exclusive. I was playing some back row instead for this Fire King, so like Torrential Tribute, for example, is a really good card in this deck because you get to destroy the whole field, preferably while you have a Fire King on the field, so that's really good. But Fire King Island is absolutely freaking broken in this deck. If this face-up card in the field zone is sent to the graveyard or banished, destroy all monsters you control. That's good. Also, during your main phase, you can destroy 1 monster in your hand or that you control, and if you do, add 1 Fire King monster from your deck to your hand. Typically, you're going to destroy either the Grunix or the Barong, in my opinion, just so you can get a Search or a Dark Hole, or if you feel like you want to get some plays going, Yaksha from your hand, and then add like a Grunix or a Barong to get a Search or a Dark Hole anyway. So, that's really good. And then also, if you control no monsters, you can special summon 1 Fire Winged Beast type monster in your hand. It's going to be Grunix. So, yeah, Fire King Island's amazing. Finally, 2 Twin Twister, don't see that, and Rekindling is just one of the best fire support cards in the game. So, essentially Soul Charge for fire monsters, which is great. Extra deck, I've already gone over this. 1 Norden for rank 4s, 2 Flame Swordsmen, so I can get some of my plays going. 1 Yazi. Yazi's amazing because if he's destroyed, You get the special summon 1 worm type monster from your deck in defense position. You play a worm monster and Draco Emperor. When Draco Emperor is destroyed, you can add Yazi back into your extra deck. So that's really cool. 1 Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. He is really good against Cosmo at the moment, and that's why he's here. But he's also a fire monster, so he even helps more with the deck. And he has an Armades type effect, so that's cool. And then for the 1 level 8, which I can use with a Hedgehog and a Instant Fusion plus a Flame Swordsman, to get him allows me to recycle cards that have been banished through like Rekindling or some other means. And so Omega is pretty cool with that. For rank 3s, 1 Phantom Knight's a Breaksword. It's a mini Scrap Dragon, so why not? In my opinion, it's a little bit better than Diamond Direwolf in this deck, because you don't, like, sometimes you have to pop Diamond Direwolf himself in order to get the effect off. Breaksword, not so much. You can just pop anything, so it's just really useful for that. And then 1 Cowboy, 1 Castell, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Diamond Dire, 1 Utopia, 1 Lightning, and then for rank 9s, 1 Phantom Fortress Enter Blathnir, and then 1 number 9 Dyson Sphere. So this card is absolutely broken if you can get it out. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card and then activate one of these effects. Banish 1 card your opponent controls. That's non-targeting, by the way. Banish 1 random card from your opponent's hand. Non-targeting. Banish 1 card from your opponent's graveyard. Non-targeting. And then banish the top card of your opponent's deck face up. You just banish a card from anywhere, essentially. And it's just so disruptive and so useful, and you can get him out. I've gotten him out multiple times with 2 Draco Emperors, and it's just so useful. It's fantastic. Dyson Sphere is also cool if you think that you have game, but your opponent has set up a board that's really hard to get over. The one drawback is that, like, if you want him to attack directly, your opponent has to control a monster with higher attack than him, which is a little difficult considering the fact that he's 2800 attack. But nonetheless, you can maybe use some cards to like change that. So Dyson Sphere is pretty cool. I typically don't go into him. I will almost always go into Phantom Fortress, but he's here in the case that I need to just attack for game. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this deck profile. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a nice day.